while this presentation will take parents, guardians and our students through the full reopening of our school from the 8th of March and also our plans for testing. And we also have our letter that is already on our website with lots of information for you. So we are absolutely thrilled to be able to welcome our students back from the 8th of March. And it is fantastic that they will all be joining us again in the academy. And it's a very exciting time for me particularly, because although I've been in position as principal from January, for many it's the first time I'll get to meet a lot of the students. And for those students that know me, it's the first time that I'll get to meet a lot of them in that position as principal. So a really exciting time for us next week as the students return. All the guidance that is in this presentation is that set out by the government and the DFE. So anything that we will refer to in terms of that, then it is taken there from the DFE guidance. You will find that most things will remain exactly as they were throughout the last term prior to January, with just one or two changes that we will highlight for you as I go along. So let's have a look, first of all, about what stays the same for our students. So they will continue to use those separate entrances into the academy and exit. So we've got those separate bubbles and they remain the same as they did prior to January. And the doors will open at 8:10 on the morning. There's those holding areas for students that arrive before. And then students will go straight to tutor rooms. And lessons will start from there at 8:25 a.m. with tutor time, and this will continue to be in the bubbles for our students. So they will be in the same bubbles, in the same classrooms and following the same timetable as they were prior to January and the lockdown. And it will be the same timings during the school day in terms of lunches and breaks. The same arrangements that we will have the separate lunches and breaks for the year groups. Unfortunately, for year 7 and 8 at the moment, some limitation in terms of those practical lessons because of the room-ins and the bubbles. And also just to be aware, of course, that what remains the same is that social distancing, that hand washing and sanitising, and I will come back to that in a couple of slides. We've also got those one-way systems in school, and we've got the floor markings to help you to remember those. As students in school, you have to remember that you have to walk single file on the corridors, and that's so that we can keep them separate, going one way and the other, and just remembering to maintain a social distance between each other, please. And we will have those staggered finish times. Just remembering, please, that you must leave site, so that as you leave at your staggered finish time, you then leave site. And that's, of course, in order to minimise any mixing of any bubbles. So all of that we've discussed is very familiar to the students and remains the same. And also, we've got their face covering. So it says as part of the guidance that face covering should be worn by adults and pupils when moving around the premises, outside of classrooms, such as in corridors and communal areas where social distancing cannot easily be maintained. Face coverings do not need to be worn by pupils when they're outdoors on the premises. So in our social areas, then it's absolutely fine outside to remove the masks. The students did absolutely fantastic with that, and this is exactly the same, but there is this change. And that's the fact that in the guidance now, it says that in addition, it's also recommended that face coverings should be now worn in classrooms or during activities unless social distancing can be maintained. And we're well aware that this is new. Please be aware that this is not our rule. We are following the guidance as it's been set out for us. We will try and build in mask breaks because we know it is going to be quite difficult for the students, and certainly getting out at break and lunch and being able to remove those masks then is going to be really important. You'll know as well as I do that this is going to be reviewed at Easter, and then changes may be made, and we will update you as we get any changes as well in the guidance. And of course, some students may be exempt from wearing masks, and if that's the case, it just makes life so much easier that they've got their exempt pass that they can show. It stops teachers continuing to ask them. And if you have a child that you believe is exempt that doesn't have one of the passes now, then please just get in touch with us. And it is, of course, important that students have their own face masks. We will have spares, and we always support our students. But it's advisable, of course, that they come prepared and that they might want to swap them throughout the day, with the fact that they are going to be wearing them for longer. So if you can just prepare them for that, please, and discuss it. There are some other changes. So we have now got the testing in place for COVID-19. It says as part of the guidance that pupils should return to face-to-face education following their first negative test result. We know that testing is not mandatory, and students will only be tested if their parents have completed the consent form in order for that to happen. And if you have completed the consent form, then your children will receive 3 COVID tests in school prior to Easter. And I'm going to give you a little bit more information about that in a minute. And there is also information about that on our website. And then after this, students who wish to will take 2 tests each week, and that will be home testing. And in terms of consenting for that, you consent to that by actually enabling your students to open the home tests and do that. And as soon as we have those tests in school, we will get a video just to help you to get used to how that home testing will work. We have some other measures in place just to keep you safe. So in the classrooms, we continue to be seated in rows, and that means that the children are facing the front of the classroom to reduce any transmission. In the dining room as well, we only use one side of the tables so that there's no one sat opposite anyone. We've got enhanced cleaning that happens throughout the day and designated toilets for each year group, so we are maintaining our bubbles. And we have hand washing stations in the outside social area and hand sanitizer stations in key areas around the school. And at the moment, it continues not to be advised that we do any large gatherings such as assemblies. So all these will continue to be remote. And of course, that kind of sign there, remembering all the time to wash your hands, cover your face, and just to keep your distance. Those basic important reminders for keeping our students and families safe. When your school is in operation, it is important to ensure it is well ventilated and a comfortable teaching environment is maintained. Again, they're taken from the government guidance. And although it is still getting warmer, we're never quite sure about the temperature. And so for that reason, students can continue to wear a plain jumper. We have allowed a coloured jumper, but we ask, please, that it only has a small logo on it. The students are really good, and if it's got a large logo on the front, they're normally quite smart about it and just turn it around. That's absolutely fine. They wear it under their blazer, and although some of the girls, some of the boys might wear scarves as they come to school, they have to be aware that as soon as they arrive at the door, that the scarf has to come off and that it can't be worn inside of school. And also the jumpers must not have hoods on them. No hooded jumpers as well, or tops in school. And as the temperature, hopefully, we all hope that they start to increase, we will review this, and it would more than likely that there won't be any need after the Easter holidays to wear jumpers, but we will update you on this. So exciting that we are all returning, but we're well aware that our children might need a little bit of help just getting ready to return. And we'd love you to take this opportunity over this week to help your children get ready for this. So for the students, many of them will have not worn their uniform since January, and they won't have had their equipment. So that's, we're coming up to 3 months So this is really to you, students. I want you to take responsibility for this. I want you to get your planner found, locate that and get it ready in your school bag. Find your uniform, get it out and try it on, because we need you to come in school uniform when you arrive on March the 8th. So please have a look at that, and also find your shoes out and get them ready. Girls, can I ask you to check the length of your skirt and make sure that you're not rolling it over at the waistband as you come into school, because that really makes them too short. And it's about now just finding and preparing your equipment and stationery and books. We understand that some of you will have obviously become more relaxed during this time and got used to wearing what you want, including your piercings, perhaps your false nails you might have been applying yourself, or false eyelashes. You might also have been experimenting colouring your own hair or going to bed really late. So it's just taking the opportunity during this week to really get yourself prepared and ready, because you know our standards and we will be maintaining these standards, and we will, of course, as always, support and help you. And you just need to get in touch, and we'll get the opportunity to meet lots of you during this week as you come in for your testing. But it's just about communicating with us if there are any issues so we can support you. No mobile phones out. You know that. There's no changes there. The only reason I put it on there is because I'm well aware that over the last months, you have got used to working on your mobile phones. You've got used to having them out all the time. So we now just need to ensure that mobiles are switched off. They're in the bottom of your bag ready as you arrive at school, and that you're not tempted to get these out. If ever you need to get in touch with home for any reason, you just come and speak to any of us as senior leaders or your learning managers, and we'll support you and we'll help you. But we never want to be taking your phones off you. And so just really important that we get that message across and remind you before you come back to school. So when do we start back? Well, our students, our vulnerable and critical worker children continue to be in school as normal this week. They're already with us. Be aware that if you have tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 90 days, you don't take a lateral flow test. And that means that you just return to school at 8:25 on Monday, the 8th of March, ready to start. Also, if you have opted not to give consent for COVID testing, then as per the guidance, you'll return to school for an 8:25 start on Monday, the 8th of March. But please remember, if anybody has any COVID symptoms at all, you must not return, but please get a test outside of school and just let us know. And if you have recently tested positive for the COVID-19, that means that you are completing your isolation and will not return to school. Many of us are joining us this week because you have opted to consent and you're coming in for your first test. And all the information has already gone out on a letter telling you when you should arrive. But you can see there as well, it separates the different year groups. It gives you your time slot where you arrive at main reception and you'll be shown into our testing centre. And also we've got that Friday time slot that's in there for anyone who's consented. So they have to have a test, but they can't make the specific time for their year group. And the reason we have those specific times is, of course, because we have to maintain those bubbles. And you will leave school as soon as you've had the test and return home. And if you have consented and you don't have a test this week, then you do actually have to have a test before you can come back to school on Monday. And that means that we'll be contacting you throughout this week so that we can arrange a time for you to come in and have a test. So many of you might feel worried that you've fallen behind, and we absolutely understand that. And some of you will have not seen very many people over the last few months and might feel a little bit daunted by the amount of people that you're going to be mixing with. You might not have left home and feel anxious about that. And then many of you just cannot wait to come back and are really excited. And what we'll just say to you is, don't worry. As always, we work together, we make this work, we support one another. And what we have put in there on the 8th of March is an extended form time of the full first period, so that you've got time to speak to your form tutors, check that you're all right, sort out any problems, and ensure that you have the very best start possible. And just so you know, we're all at the minute making plans for our most important visitors ever into the school, and that is you, because we just cannot wait for you to return. We are, really excited to have you back. And we know that as soon as we're all back together, it will very quickly feel like the new normal, and we'll get the routines and consistency in place. And as always, we work together as a community. So I will see many of you this week for the testing. If not, I will see you next week. And I just look forward to it. And thank you very much for your time watching this presentation.